This is a dangerous groups that we're dealing with now. It was a nightmare.
Flight 807, you're clear for landing, runway 7, Bravo.
All personnel report to the nearest tornado shelter. This is not a drill.
If you need help, then dial your operator.
Have no fear, fellow citizens. The Mediator is here.
Good morning and welcome to this week's edition of The Mediator with me, your host, Brian West, here to give you the top 8 headlines and developing news stories that made in this week. Now, as usual, I'll give you the top 8 local headlines and developing news stories that made in first, followed by a movie clip, a skit, a trailer, or something that's going on in the community, or maybe some pictures. And then I'll give you the top 8 international headlines and developing news stories that made in this week. So let's waste no time, folks. Let's get to it. Story number 1. A list of local nonprofits have been receiving support. Pretty big list. Money is tight for a lot of local nonprofits, but there is a list of local nonprofits that have been receiving a lot of support. Now, even through hardship, local nonprofits have also been receiving federal assistance from COVID-19 aid money. Now, with so much money circulating around to assist local nonprofits in carrying out their mission statements, some concerned residents are worried about too much government spending in regards to accountability, meaning they want to know if all this money will be accounted for after the fact. Now, in a growing influx of homelessness and violence, many are also concerned about if donations are being put to good use or if people operating these organizations are just passing the buck. Now, this is just a story that made it in. That's why it made in this week. People are working very, very hard, but accountability is becoming a big issue in story number 1. That's why it made into the top 8 this week. Story number 2, local taxing to improve roads. The county chief engineer, Pat Giannetti, took to the airwaves this week discussing road improvements. City officials may decide to account for local road improvements with a 0.25% sales tax over the next 5 years. Now, the tax could generate between $8 million to $9 million annually, strictly used for road improvements and nothing else. That's what's in this deal, and that's why story number 2 made in this week. Bumpy roads are not good, and nobody likes the car repairs, so maybe taxes are the answer. Story number 3. What has the Distress Commission accomplished in Youngstown so far? Youngstown City Schools still have an F grade. That's a fact. Now, the city has been under the guidance of a distress commission, which still hasn't reached the goal of accomplishing anything to get the local public school district to a passing grade. Even if a D or F or C, whatever it is, it's not passing yet. Now, although this story will develop over time, local board officials want the school back in the hands of local control. But with hardly no progress being made, it appears that at the moment, Youngstown City Schools will still be under pressure by the Distress Commission to meet the grade. Now, what got this story in is that John Richard, chairman of the Youngstown Academic Distress Commission, just stepped down to be interim superintendent of public instruction beginning September 25th. So there's some transition taking place in an already struggling district under the Academic Distress Commission. That's why story number 3 made it in this week. Story number 4. A lot of locals are still in need of extra funding. That includes businesses and people, residents. Now, government assistance doesn't seem to be enough at the moment because many local residents want more. Local residents and business owners seems to still be in a financial bind that they feel is keeping them from reaching their fullest potential. Money, they need access to it. COVID-19 has pretty much exposed everyone's financial situation and has put a lot of people in a much deeper financial hole. Now, one local Vindicator headline homes in on the $44 million in American Rescue Plan funds. The funding talk was centered around completion of the extension of sanitary sewer lines at the Youngstown Warren Regional Airport at about $673,000 of improvements. Now, improvements to Austintown's campus of care was also mentioned, and also the Youngstown Development Center, Flying High, Head Start, Compass Family and Community Services, Alta Behavioral Health, Easter Seals, and potential development. So all this was enlisted in some of this packages to improve. Now, each entity was cited in the report to receive funds to improve local conditions. The report is extensive. It goes in detail explaining how the local American Rescue Plan funds will be spent locally. This is a Vindicator article that goes in extensive depth explaining how so far the first half of that money will be spent, and that's why story number 4 made it in this week. Big headline. Story number 5. We may just have to live with COVID-19 locally and probably across the world. Now, the confusion surrounding COVID-19 is real and getting worse. It's looking like we may have to live with the virus like we live with the cold and the flu. That's what's been circulating in some reports. Now, with everybody trying to fix the problem and a growing divide when it comes to what works and doesn't work with COVID-19, it appears that this virus has created a world of trouble and confusion. Now, 1 minute cases are up and the next cases are down, and there is still mounting evidence that a large amount of people just do not trust nor want to get vaccinated. They don't trust the government and they don't want to get vaccinated. What is keeping this story alive is that even though this virus has a higher survival rate, people are still dying from it, and the new Delta variant seems to now be the new top concern, and that's why story number 5 made in this week. Big headline. Big developing news. Story number 6. A few stories to watch that could impact the local economy. Big headlines. Now, the Lordstown Motors Company story showing the electric vehicle maker to be facing a number of lawsuits is just one story. Here's some more. The progress of General Motors battery plant is another story to keep an eye on. Stories in circulation about the rise of 3D printing is also a good story to keep an eye on. Each of these stories has the potential to change the state of the local economy. Congressman Tim Ryan's confirmation of Valley projects moving forward, which include $8.7 million of of the money geared towards Youngstown Air Reserve Station in Vienna, is also here's some more money that's being circulated to keep an eye on in these stories. $2 million for the Youngstown Community Food Center, $1.5 million for the Boys and Girls Club, $1 million to Mercy Health Youngstown, $850,000 for Mahoning County High School in Youngstown. Now $549,600 for Louisville Wastewater Improvement Project, and $312,744 for the Youngstown Business Incubator. All of this is tied up into story number 6, and these are stories that could impact the local economy in a big way to circulate those funds in the local community, and that's why it made it in this week. Big headline. Story number 7 in the top 2 local headlines and developing news stories that made it in this week. Mediation is tough, but somebody's got to do it. Local problems. Story number 7. Local problems that need to be addressed in the next election. The next election is not too far away, and here is a list of local problems that have to be addressed. The key word is has and have. It has to be addressed. They have to be addressed. The education system, number 1, that needs to be addressed, and getting kids back in the process of wanting to learn and grow locally. That means stay, learn, and spend locally. Number 2, the crime problem. How will the city overcome the constant threat of violence that remains the main topic of discussion, from residents living in fear to losing someone dear to them because of retaliation of drugs? Running home, causing clothes, that's how all my partners roll. That's becoming a problem. Money, oh, causing clothes. It's becoming a problem. Number 3, The song is good, but the crime is bad. Number three, improving decaying neighborhoods and roads. That's another problem. And to make matters even worse, each or better, each of these top three problems are currently in circulation, so they're already in the news and already being talked about. But to stay alive, leading into next election, this is what the big thing, and that's what it will basically evaluate. Story number 7 is to see if action will be taken. So all of that, that's how we run, shorty. The song gets you hype and ready for the day, but what's happening in the streets is real, and that's why story number 7 made it to the top 2 this week. Story number 8 and the top local headline and developing news story that made it this week. Oh man, got through that last story. Whew. I barely made it. Story number 8. Gun problems continue to nag the valley. A 17-year-old was killed at point-blank range at a gas station. Now, just about every week, a gun story involving a shooting or homicide has made it headlines in Youngstown. That's bad news. The gun problem is real and is getting worse, and it's becoming clear that either Youngstown's elected officials don't seem to know how to fix the problem, or they just don't have the resources to fix the problem. That means money, manpower, etc. Now, with a mayor seeking re-election and a newly appointed police chief still scrambling to find a solution, this story is still developing. So far, there have been 70 shootings in Youngstown as of July 19th. So there's been about 70 shootings so far, which is not good. That means if you double that in the next, we're only halfway through the year, so if you double that, that'll be 140, which is not good on anybody's resume. Columbus was reported to have over 100. So story number 8 is a big headline for Ohio. Let's hope we can get it together and come together as people and get this right. Well, those are our top 8 local headlines and developing news stories that made it this week. I'll be right back with the top 8 international headlines, so don't go anywhere. You're on the Mediator with me, Brian West. I'll be right back. Hello, everybody. I'm backstage. I'm back here with Richard Smiley, and he's going to talk a little bit about Shakespeare in the Park. Tell us a little bit about the show we got going on at Shakespeare in the Park.
Well, the Shakespeare in the Park is put on by the theatrical company, the Mahoning Valley Players.
Okay.
And they always do 1 to 2 shows every year in the park at Morley Pavilion in Mill Creek Park. And this time, their final show of their small season is going to be All's Well That Ends Well.
Oh, okay, great. And I'm actually in that show. Tell us a little bit about it. Tell us about the show.
One thing about the show, there's the one line from Shakespeare that goes, "The course of true love never did run smooth." And it could be applicable in the situation here where you've got true love not running smooth and a woman doing everything she can within her reasonable power to snag her man. And I have to say, in that sense, Shakespearean, Elizabethan, you go, girl.
Yeah, that's basically what the show is about. Okay, now tell us, what time is the show again?
The show is going to be Friday and Saturday, July 30th and 31st at 6 p.m. And then the final show is going to be on Sunday, August the 1st at 2 p.m. The admission is free. You may want to bring either some lawn chairs or blankets to sit on while you watch and enjoy the show.
Yes. And I will be in the show with Richard, so I hope you guys can come out and make it. Is there any last comments you'd like to make for everybody out there, Richard?
Hey, I'm going to be the king of France, so I got a little bit of pull and power and royalty, at least within the confines and parameters of the show. But it's just going to be fun. It's fun doing it. It's fun working with Brian here.
Yeah.
And I think you'll have a very good time when you come to the park on either July 30th or 31st at 6 p.m., Sunday, August the 1st at 2 p.m. to see the show All's Well That Ends Well.
Yes, hope to see you all there. And thanks to Carla Gibson for directing the show. See you all there. Welcome back. Now it's time to get to the top 8 international headlines and developing news stories that made in this week. A long time ago, when I was in my heyday, I was at a get-together, and they had this nice song. I like big butts and I cannot lie. The other brother can't deny. Get Trump. And I got all excited. Girls were shaking it up, getting juicy. And then all of a sudden somebody pulled a gun out on me and said, "Put them up! Put them up!" And that's when the last party I went to. That was the last party I attended. And that's when I became the mediator. I decided to be productive. Read the top stories and come in here every week to give you something to live off of, something to look at. Peace and happiness in every story developed by me and developed by those creating news every day on the front lines. Now that's my story. I went from the Booty Patrol to the mediator in less than a week. That's my story, folks, and I'm sticking to it. So let's get to it. Story number 1. Almost 8 months into the Biden election, let's examine the difference between him and Trump. Now, it is very clear that Biden has a totally different mindset than Donald Trump, a career politician who seems to have a government-centered approach for the solution to fix the world's problem. That's a real deal. That's the fact. Now, he has also shown interest in taxing the rich and making higher earners pay their fair share by taxing them. Now, this is different because Trump's approach was very, very different. Now, tax cuts. This was some of Trump's strategy. Tax cuts on the higher earners, in addition to an attempt to make the world pay for what he and his base felt was owed to America, the United States. Now, halfway into a year of Biden, while also in the midst of economic uncertainty, analysts are already examining Biden's style of leadership compared to our previous president, President Trump. Now, in this ongoing evaluation, the world is understanding the importance of not only diplomacy, but they're also understanding other ways to resolve conflicts besides war. Now, no matter who is in office, we will see how this evolution of deal making and global affairs unfolds. And that's why story number 1 made it in this week. Story number 2. COVID-19 seems to be holding investors hostage, literally. Now, the stock market has been up and down because it almost seems as though COVID-19 has been holding investors hostage. Now, I really mean that. It almost seems that way. One minute, the hype around the vaccine causes some very needed economic activity. That means stocks start booming. Then the next minute, vaccine hopes get shot down, and then next thing you know, about only half of the population wants to get vaccinated. Then stocks go down. So all this stuff going on is causing stocks to rise and causing stocks to fall, which coins the term holding investors hostage. It's almost like saying we got the vaccine, we don't have the vaccine, we got something here. So now the key to this story is that to get a return, there has to be certainty, and COVID-19 is killing that certainty, causing stocks to continue to be on a roller coaster ride. And that's why story number 2 made it in this week. Story number 3. Infrastructure bill fails at the first attempt. Falls and fails. The $1.2 trillion infrastructure bill has been shot down by Republicans on the first attempt. Now, at the moment, the concern is how to pay for the bill. The Biden administration has proposed some large government spending programs at an attempt to legitimize his presidential ambitions. So using government to solve the problems and using infrastructure to create jobs and gain mass support compared to Trump. So this may have been a strategy. Now, with the Democrat formula constantly at odds with the Republican solution, what has been going on in Washington remains a top concern. In Washington, D.C., and government spending is all over the place. Some people are saying, how can we account or get a hold on this ballooning government spending? And that's why story number 3 is so important. And that's why I made it in this week. Story number 4. Still lack of trust surrounding the vaccine. There's still a lack of trust. Now, things are getting very, very difficult when it comes to the solution for the COVID-19 problem. Medical professionals have been voicing their ongoing frustration because people continue to refuse to get vaccinated for various reasons. The main reason is trust. This is a big headline. Now, in the next several weeks, analysts will be focusing on the number one question, and that is, do you trust the government enough to get vaccinated for a virus that has a high survival rate? At the moment, people say no. And I mean no. And that's why story number 4 made in this week. Well, those are our top 4 stories that made in this week. I'll be right back with the top 4 international headlines and developing news stories. So don't go anywhere. You're in the Mediator with me, Brian West. I'll be right back. If you want to check out the stories that almost made it in or did make it in, go to our Twitter feed on our website. Check out everything. All of the sources are there. And go to the website. It's method8inc.com. Method8inc.com where you can buy something, click on something, watch something, read something, or just sponsor a program. Welcome back. Now it's time to get to the top 4 international headlines and developing news stories that made in this week. I was in the military. I'll never forget it. I pulled over somebody. I said, get up! Hands up! Step out of the car right now! And once I realized that it was one of my fellow sailors, I said, oh, I'm sorry. I put the gun down. And on that very day, I realized what a gun can do to somebody. The sailor was frightened. I was frightened. And I embraced him. I said, I'm sorry. At that moment, I decided to put down my weapons. I decided to educate myself and become the mediator. And that's my story, folks. And I'm sticking to it. So let's get to it. Story number 5. Children have been hit the hardest due to COVID-19, coronavirus. From child poverty to smuggling children in at the border, and even the simple fact that children are dying. The ripple effect of COVID-19 has exposed what has already been going on in the field of household affairs. Now, at an alarming rate, children have been in numerous headlines this year due to critical concerns about abuse, poverty, neglect, education, mental health, and even death. Outside of any reports on success stories, that means that outside of any success stories being reported, the majority of the discussions taking place seems to be on aid to assist children and help them get out of poverty. Now, this is an ongoing news story that has even gotten out of hand due to COVID-19. That's a fact. Now, more than 1 million children around the world could have been left orphaned because of COVID-19, according to a study in USA Today. Another critical point is the fact that the education gap is also growing, and that's why story number 5 made it this week. Big headline. Story number 6. Even with the vaccine, some countries are choosing to live with COVID-19. They're just going to live with it. After a story surfaced about how some Mexican citizens in a town in Mexico refused to take the vaccine, another story made headlines showing how some countries are now just choosing to live with the virus. So after people are showing restraint to get vaccinated in the story about Mexico, this small town, they're saying that in Singapore and the UK, according to a CNN report, that they're planning to just live with COVID-19. Now they're just going to live with it. And at the moment, the two countries plan to just treat it COVID-19 like the flu and any other virus. Now, only time will tell how the story develops and if other surrounding countries or nations decide to pick on and try to do the exact same thing. At the moment, some people just feel we don't have a choice. And that's why story number 6 made it in this week. It almost made it to the top. Story number 7 in the top 2 international headlines and developing news stories that made it in this week. Ooh, ain't my type of hype, baby. Ooh, ooh, oh, let the sun shine at top 2 stories. Just gotta let it out sometimes. The world migration problem is getting worse. House party. Get funky. Stories in circulation about migration focusing on the core of what is causing people to risk their lives to flee to other countries are staying alive in the headlines. So, a story about migration, people fleeing their countries to get to other countries, they're staying alive. And these are real stories. The stories exemplify what is taking place in poor nations with corrupt and crumbling governments. Some of them are just crumbling and may not even be corrupt, but some of them are corrupt and crumbling. The details in this story also show how government aid money is being misspent with no real progress in stopping the migration problem because it's getting worse. So there's no progress at all. And everybody seems to try to find a way, but nothing is being done. A Texas state trooper found a semi loaded with 105 migrants being smuggled into the U.S. Border, into the U.S. period. Now, Governor Ron DeSantis of Florida put his 2 cents in the discussion about Biden's immigration policy by stating that more migrants were headed from Texas to Florida. So he's saying that they're headed to his state, coming across the Texas border, now the U.S. border in Texas. Now, in conclusion, there's been another blow to immigration policies after a court ruled DACA to be illegal. DACA is the Obama program for child migrants. So the more migration stories come in, the more the news seems to be going down. That means bad, and in a bad way. And that's why story number 7 made it to the top 2 this week, because this could get out of hand if it already hasn't. Big headline. Story number 8 and the top international headline and developing news story that made it this week. Strictly for you. I came in here, got dressed up, suit and tie, just to give you this story. What is the price tag on COVID-19 so far? It's big. Enough to fuel me a jet and send me to another planet, if possible. At the end of the day, things add up. And so far, COVID-19 has been a very expensive virus to not only contain, but to cure. It's expensive. A lot of money. Now, this story is so expensive that the federal government has been leaking cash with hardly any idea on how that cash will be recovered and accounted for. Some of this COVID-19 funding, according to The Guardian, could be harmful to the environment. That's just what they're saying. Some of this funding has already been harmful to the environment. So far, COVID-19 is estimated to cost the world between $8.1 trillion to $15.8 trillion. That is a lot of money on a global scale. And that's why story number 8 is at the top this week, because if things are going up, then there's a big chance that COVID-19 is the reason. And that's why story number 8 made it to the top this week. Well, those are our top 8 local and international headlines and developing news stories that I made this week. I hope you got something out of today's program. I always get something out of doing the research. As usual, I like to thank all the news outlets, the journalists, the people in the front lines. You deserve all the credit. The media, the people in the front line, you deserve all the credit. I'm just the media, the man in the middle. If you want to show some support, or me any support here at Method 8, it doesn't take much. All you have to do is visit the website on the screen, buy something, click on something, watch something, read something, or to sponsor a program. The goal every week is to keep you informed, keep you on top of things, and to give you the top 8 stories that are keeping you active. Well, thank you so much for tuning in this week to The Mediator with me, Brian West. I'll be back next week to look through over 200 or more. It's just for you. Have a good week, everybody. Thank you for tuning to The Mediator with me once again, Brian West. Have to say it 2 times, just for you. Peace.
Have no fear, fellow citizens. The Mediator